Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Brendan.
And today at Jamestown Distributors, we're going to talk about a hardtop construction project that we're getting ready to begin here in the shop. What we're going to do is we are replacing the canvas cover on an existing aluminum hardtop frame or bimini frame on a BlackWatch 26. And we are replacing the canvas with laminated carbon and foam panels so that we have a more rigid top. And the owner has plans to strap down surfboards and wakeboards and kayaks and other things like that. What you're looking at here is the quick mold that we built to laminate the panels, and we surfaced the mold with a 5x10 sheet of Formica just to get a smooth, shiny surface. And then because of the shape of the aluminum framework that we're fitting these panels to, we've given one edge some curvature, about 2.5 inches of curvature fore and aft, and then this outer edge, or this edge, which will become the outer edge, is straight. Now that the mold is complete, we're going to first apply a layer of wax to the mold. This will ensure that the epoxy doesn't stick to the mold surface. Once the wax has been polished and buffed, we carefully lay out or roll out our first layer of carbon. We want to ensure that the weave of the cloth is nice and straight, because this is what you'll see from the underside of the hardtop. We are going to wet out our carbon using Total Boat 5:1 epoxy with slow hardener. The slow hardener will give us an extra amount of time to make sure that we get the cloth completely wet out and the epoxy saturated. We're going to use squeegees to move the epoxy around the surface of the carbon. This is a fast and efficient way to get a lot of epoxy down on a fairly large surface of carbon cloth. Once the carbon has been wet out, we will roll on a second layer of e-glass. This is the white cloth that you see, and the cloth turns essentially clear once it's completely saturated with the epoxy. At the same time, Brendan is applying some thickened epoxy with silica to the foam. This will ensure that there's a very good bond between the foam and the fiberglass skins that we've already wet out on the mold surface. We are placing the foam down on the wet out laminate that's already on the mold surface, and you will notice that there are a series of holes cut out in the foam. These holes are for the G10 inserts that Brendan previously cut out. The G10 inserts are for the locations on the hardtop where we're going to bolt down rod holders and also surfboard racks. With the foam in place, we now apply some Total Boat Thick Sew to the G10 inserts as well as the recesses that we've already cut in the foam. We also use the Thick Sew for the seam between the two pieces of foam. And once the inserts are in place, we apply a little extra thick sew around the edges to make sure we don't have any air bubbles or pockets. We now remove the layer of masking tape that we put down around the perimeter of the mold before we waxed it. The masking tape just gives us a clean surface around the perimeter of the mold. This will ensure a clean surface for the tacky tape. In preparation for applying the vacuum bag, we first lay out a light blue layer of peel ply. Over the peel ply, we roll out a layer of breather ply. This will ensure that we have good airflow underneath the bag and between the part, and we don't collect any air bubbles in between. We have left some extra material in the vacuum bag, and this extra material is made up for in darts around the perimeter. The darts give us extra material in the vacuum bag so that as the bag pulls down against the part while we pull a vacuum, we are not bridging any gaps and creating air pockets. We also use a little extra breather ply around the vacuum hose to ensure that the vacuum hose isn't plugged as a vacuum is pulled on the bag. We leave the vacuum pump running overnight to ensure that the epoxy is completely cured. The next day, we remove the vacuum bag and the peel ply, and this leaves us with a foam surface that we will then apply the same carbon and glass laminate to that we used on the underside of the panel. This will complete the first half of the panel, and we'll repeat the same process for the other half. Stay tuned for our next installment, where we'll show you how to trim, paint, and install the hardtop panels on the boat.